OpenAI is finalizing commitments for a historic $100 billion funding round, of which Nvidia is allegedly putting in 30 billion. I'll share my screen here. But that's like another confirmation of like, wow, damn, it's still running hot, the whole AI valuations. I was thinking maybe we're coming towards a top in valuations, like how much higher can it go? But if OpenAI is raising 100 billion, and I don't know what Anthropic has raised that recently, that's pretty incredible. That's a very high numbers. And I saw another tweet addressing this. It's not this one. It's basically explaining sort of the bubble-like territory, right? Where NVIDIA invests in OpenAI, OpenAI buys NVIDIA GPUs, their OpenAI invests in CoreWeave. Like it's all intertwined together. And I'm wondering when or where is going to be the stop, where is going to be a value roof, basically. But I would love to hear your guys' opinions in this, like, because at this point,
Yeah.
Sam is becoming very, very, very powerful with all this money and all these hands and everything that's going on. Multi-billion-dollar corporations that are all tied together. Same for Anthropic, just a little bit less, like they have a little bit less of a spider web, I would say. But Ben, I think you have an opinion on this.
Yeah, well, also in terms of this fundraise of 100 billion, the biggest investor there, I think, is maybe Amazon,
Mm-hmm.
I read at least they're 50 billion out of the 100, which I always
Yeah.
thought that they were one of the top investors of Anthropic, right? So it really is this kind of spray and pray where everyone's just investing in everything, which is kind of one of the biggest indicators of a bubble. But the biggest risk here to me, remember DeepSeek? Remember when we all freaked out about DeepSeek? That was like over a year ago. And that was kind of leveling the playing field. And all these models were basically roughly the same in terms of performance. And DeepSeek was doing it at like a fraction of the cost. I think we're probably a few months away for something like that happening again, right? I mean, it's pretty inevitable that all these models are going to be amazing. And if we remember like how DeepSeek was able to get their model that good, well, they actually just scraped OpenAI, ChatGPT, and who's to say they're not going to do that again with ChatGPT or with Claude and Anthropic. So to me, like all these valuations, like I don't know what the right answer is. Like I think we all probably can agree that the pie is going to get bigger at a company by company basis. Like where throughout the value chain is the value going to be accrued to? I only see kind of Nvidia being like the real monopoly holder here. I don't see any real talks of other companies having performance that equals that of GPUs from Nvidia, right? I think Google TPUs, from what I've read, is they're way less performant, but they're also way cheaper. So you could just throw a lot of them. But especially in the US, where we have limited electricity, you really want to get as much performance out of these chips as possible, and that just means having all the state of the art latest NVIDIA chips. I think the Blackwell is finally coming out. So right, so these Blackwell chips are going to be in this next version of the AI models, and should be interesting to see. But I don't know, like it definitely feels frothy. If OpenAI is like on a pace to become $1 trillion company by next year, it seems.
Yeah, and then Elon is coming with his data centers in space to compete with
Yeah.
that.
Exactly. This is what I wanted to go on to next, because we're talking about Amazon being the biggest investor in OpenAI and all of these things. But this is all going to compute, right? It's all going to data centers. We know that Elon is planning on building these data centers in space, but doesn't Jeff Bezos have Blue Origin? Or is there a world where Jeff Bezos is using Blue Origin to, put data centers in space for OpenAI or Anthropic, or what's going to happen there,
I think Jeff Bezos' rockets are not even close to what Elon's plan is and what timeline Elon is working on. But that's my opinion. I think Elon has done enough. Like recently, 2 podcasts which were quite interesting. One with moonshots, which was quite eye-opening. Hearing the plans, and Elon's timelines, what he says is always shorter than what it's going to be in reality. But even then, it seems like there's a clear path to doing this. And once the data centers are in space, I think, for example, in CoreWeave, which whole business model is data center provision, like providing data centers to other businesses, are kind of a broken business model. That's probably going to be challenging. And you see that all those big players like an Amazon, like a Meta, like an OpenAI, like an Anthropic, they're all investing in their own data centers because they want to own the data centers, right? So, and then like I think Elon might disrupt like businesses like CoreWeave and all of that, and that's part of this value stack, like we see, right? OpenAI invests in CoreWeave, CoreWeave leases NVIDIA GPUs. So it's like this whole circle, but we don't see any mentions of XAI. It feels like XAI is just operating on itself. Like you have the big guys fighting, and then you have XAI on the other side. Is what's this saying of if two dogs fight for a bone, the third one runs with it. This it might be. Who knows, right? Might be the case here in the AI race as well. I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with XAI in this whole story.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. And like Elon's whole philosophy when it comes to AI data centers, I guess, is that you can power the solar, right, 24/7, since the solar panels are running all the time instead of, I guess, half the time. I don't know. It just it doesn't really seem to make any sense that you can be able to launch all of the components up into space and it's gonna like be feasible. I just asked ChatGPT like kind of even give me like a quick rundown, like quick rundown math of how much it would cost versus right now. And yeah. So on Earth, typical costs, facility build, 10 to 40 million dollars. Server and GPUs this. So basically the total on Earth cost would be 60 million to 325 million. Whereas in space, if we're doing the equivalent 10 megawatt power data center, the launch cost, which is 1,000 tons, 2,500 per kilogram. This is what we're showing. It would be 3.5 to $5.5 billion versus $150 million on Earth. So I don't know. Like, unless Elon is thinking about something that we're not, I just don't see a path where this could even make any sense. What do you guys think about this?
I heard that like that it's not Elon talking about data centers in space, but the Google guys and everyone is now thinking about data centers in space. So there must be some economical thing that we oversee in this
what I
calculation.
what I think is maybe people are excited about with it is that it means that the energy we're using on Earth can be used for other purposes beyond AI, right? So yeah, we need to countries need to scale up their power generation, and it's not just the US; it's the whole world, except for a few places, that are energy rich. Most of the world is quite energy poor. So I think that's where this comes from, because there's a lot of pushback even politically from citizens. No one wants a data center that's close to their city or their town, because that automatically puts more stress on their grid, puts up their competition for water and electricity in their area. So I think maybe on paper the math on Earth makes a lot more sense, but maybe there's just more bureaucracy, which means that it's more difficult. And if you're talking about people like Elon Musk, who 2.5 billion to get 1 megawatt in space, maybe that's crazy to think about the return on investment. But I guess if you can prove that it works in 15, 20, 30 years, then maybe the economics start to make sense. So yeah, I think it is a insane idea, and like maybe the numbers, I didn't think they were that ridiculous, but they look ridiculous. But I think that's where the interest comes from, is that we're feeling the pressures of our planet, and kind of this is the next level.
Yeah, that's a great point. I do think the bottleneck is indeed the energy. There just isn't enough energy to keep this all going at this or accelerating at the space that we are accelerating it now. And Elon is looking out of the box or out of Earth to other solutions. And I think that's basically it. The US can only generate that much power. I think China is running faster in the power race with other sources, but that's not really available in the US. Or if they want to implement that or build that, that's going to take years and years. And at the current pace of AI improvements and speed, just can't really do that. And I guess Elon sees it as a opportunity to build it in space, and he has a tech to do it. So yeah,
It's so smart.
that's going to be exciting. Ben, you got the
Did you
last?
see it? Yeah. The last point on this, it really got me hyped up. Just this was in the Cheeky Pint interview where I think the interviewer said something to Elon like first it was Starlink, like you had this idea of putting internet up there, and then now it's putting data centers in space, and he just asked Elon like what where is this coming from? And Elon paused, and then he goes, you can see why I think we're in a simulation now. And he's just like, it feels like a video game. It's not the hardest video game, but it's a video game, right? You just got to get to the next level and do the next thing until we can until we can get there to Mars, right? Which is his end goal. So yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know. That was pretty
and
awesome to see.
somehow he always finds like his next undertaking or his next business, and then returns cash flow to build the next thing and the next thing to then come to his end goal to go to Mars. But in the meantime, he is sending the whole world's supplies to space, and then we're gonna build a base on the moon, and we're having satellites meanwhile disrupting the old ISPs, internet service providers, and all of that, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
it does seem like a game for him, which is pretty cool. Very 4D chess. I think the next topic could be we stay in the OpenAI lane, and OpenAI Sam Altman and Anthropic CEO did not want to touch hands in India. I think that's maybe meme of the week in AI land. I'll share my screen here. Let's make it a bit bigger. But you clearly see why is this? Is this two children that don't want to hold hands, or what's behind this? What's the opinions here, guys?
Rick, why don't you play it back? Let's just look one more time. Like who's instigating it? Like who do we think is more involved with like not wanting to hold hands?
Okay, I think it's Sam
Yeah, I do
who
too.
doesn't want.
I think Dario, if you play it back,
I
Dario
don't know.
is looking kind of to see if they're gonna touch hands,
Dario
but
was just
I don't know.
so stiff. He's just standing there like his deer in front of headlights. His body language looks like he's internally going to, slap someone. But yeah, I think Sam must have got under his skin. That's what it looks like to me. I think he looks to me like he's having fun in the situation because he's closer to the Indian Prime Minister. So he's like, I got a good spot. And the guy of Anthropic is just like, damn it, why did I get next to him, you know?
I do wonder how much this is related to the whole OpenClaw thing that happened literally 24 hours, 48 hours before. What you end up seeing is Claude Bot was renamed to OpenClaw because Dario, the CEO of Anthropic and kind of Anthropic, didn't want OpenClaw to be named Claude Bot. It sounded too similar to Claude. And so now they rename it something that actually sounds kind of similar to OpenAI, OpenClaw. And next thing you see is Peter Steinberger selling his company to OpenAI, right? So I don't know. It's pretty interesting, like the confluence of events here. And even latest, I don't know if you guys saw this, but like Anthropic has changed their terms of service to make it so that you can't use your subscription towards OpenClaw anymore, right? So this is getting pretty heated between the two.
Yeah, I can't understand their move over there. And I'm on the fence on whether it's because they're just being very cautious about the risks of OpenClaw that come along with it, the risks to the users. Because, at the end of the day, I think OpenClaw is really driving up the usage of these models. I mean, most people I know who are working with OpenClaw, they were spending 100 plus, sometimes 300, sometimes 1,000 credits, dollars in credits per day on Anthropic's, Opus. So I can't understand what motivated them to be so aggressive in blocking access and preventing users from using it. Other than they're just very concerned about privacy and security. Now, if OpenClaw under OpenAI is rushed too fast towards the average user, and there is consequences for moving that fast, then maybe it will backfire on OpenAI. But we're yet to see if that will happen, because I think OpenAI is probably going to try create some closed version of OpenClaw that they'll be able to distribute to their average users, and maybe that works out, maybe it doesn't, we'll have to see. But yeah, I'm sure OpenClaw will have its open source repo that people who are a bit more technical could then decide if they want to use OpenAI's codex or the Anthropic API if they still allow it, or maybe XAI for coding.
Do you really think the non-handshake has to do with the OpenClaw acquisition or a fight on OpenClaw, or is it more like maybe Sam took the Super Bowl ad personal? Because that's another thing we might be thinking about, right? Where Anthropic had a pretty funny Super Bowl ad, I think, or a few Super Bowl ads as like cheap shots to OpenAI. One of them is like, yeah, we don't have ads, and there was some other topics that went through it. But do you think? And actually, I didn't really see those ads until I saw Sam's message about it, how he was so not liking those ads. And Sam's message actually made those ads spread much further than the ads would have actually go if he didn't make that message, because I saw that message on Twitter and that's when I went to YouTube and searched for the Anthropic Super Bowl ad. Otherwise I wouldn't have seen it. So do you think maybe Sam took that a bit personal and is that why he didn't want to hold hands? Or maybe it's a combination of all of it, but I think it's a bit childish, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, this feud probably has been going back for a few years. I think Dario, I'm reading that he left OpenAI in 2021. He was there from 2016 to 2021. He basically left with his sister because he had disagreements about kind of how how the company should be going, and disagreements basically about the direction of where they should be going. I don't know. I'm curious. Like, what do you guys think? Like, what is, if we had to guess what their philosophies are? Like Dario and Sam, how do they differ? Like, I've been trying to think about that. Is one more kind of conscious about the world than the other? Is it coming from like a different place? Like, which one's more like woke, if you will? Like, do you guys have, I have my thoughts and I'm happy to share as well, but I'm curious to know what you guys think about like how Sam and Dario kind of think about this differently.